You're listening to Permission To, the podcast where we dive into the science and soul of owning your worthiness as a perfectly imperfect human being. I'm your host, Sam Dew, psychotherapist, positive psychology coach, mama to a beautiful 5-year-old Emily, and passionate advocate for living an inspired life. My aim is to show you that you have full permission to own your worthiness so that you can embrace your true nature and begin walking boldly toward your dreams. Let's dive in. So I'm so excited to have my beautiful friend and past client, Halley Miranda here. Halley is a multi-passionate, creative, just generally beautiful, big-hearted human. And she's here to share a little bit about her permission granted journey and also her journey as a multi-passionate, creative human. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Sam. I appreciate it.
So if we go straight into the juicy stuff, can you take back to you a few years ago and share a little bit more about where you were at and what led you to sign up to Permission Granted?
Yes, for sure. I think
It's been a couple of years.
Oh yeah, it has. Was that the first time you ran Permission Granted as well? Yeah,
It was actually. So it's like 3 years.
End of 2020. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, right when COVID hit, I think.
Look, I was in a very topsy-turvy, changing place in my life. I think I'd made a couple of really big decisions right before, and I was trying to think about like how it came about that I found out about Permission Granted, because I don't think that I followed you that much beforehand. And somehow, anyway, you were like one of the first people that I met in terms of, I was just like trying to figure out who I was, I guess. I'd lost myself completely. And I was looking for a community. I was looking for some guidance. I was looking for someone to, or something to help me figure out, who I was, who I am. Who I was in that moment, I guess, is different to who I am now. But yeah, I just left a really big relationship and had moved into a house by myself and was on the brink of like quitting my job, or maybe I'd already done that. And it was probably perfect timing, like, yeah. And I was trying to think also about what the journey was like working with you and all the other beautiful women. And I think just being witnessed through that part of my life, was like really important for me, and probably gave me a lot of permission to try new things and figure out who I was, and all of those things. So
I remember, it's funny, I've got such a good memory when it comes to my clients, and I think which just shows how much I'm kind of in it and love that holding space. And I remember, you were like right on the cusp of quitting your job, and I think you almost just needed like a little bit of a loving, like, yes, we're holding you. And you had just ended that relationship, and I just remember it being such a beautiful journey. And I know that you became really connected to a couple of the women in Permission Granted, particularly some of the Perth ones. So it was like, just beautiful timing that you found us right at that transition stage. And what do you think was like the biggest mindset shift that you noticed in yourself since, through Permission Granted, I guess?
I think I was trying to reflect on this as well, and maybe because it was such a long time ago, I can't remember anything specific. But I know so deeply that it was part of the journey to where I am right now. Like there are things that I like don't even notice anymore, or like don't stand out as permission granted things, but 100% there are things that led me to the path that I am taking now, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's actually really beautiful to be chatting to you as someone who completed permission granted a couple of years ago, because it is like, yeah, obviously some of the like specifics that you learn are going to be like less clear, but to me what it sounds like is that you've really kind of embodied some of those lessons. And how would you
100%.
say your life is different now from, before you
Oh my God.
to now?
Everything, almost everything is different. I think like there are very few people still in my life now that I knew back then. Like a lot of people have since come into my life and so don't even know the version of me that I was.
Yeah.
And I think, oh my goodness, yeah, maybe like core values, same. Like I still am really passionate about the environment, about creativity, about the ocean and going in the ocean as frequently as possible, and like health and wellness and those kinds of things. So they're like, and I think they are things that we carry with us for a lot of our life, unless we're like determined to change those things. I think those they're quite heavily embodied in us.
Yes.
But yeah, pretty much everything else, like the workplaces that I engage in, that I have my own business, and I was just thinking about this as well, that I've technically had my business for almost 2.5 years, and though it's gone through so much change over that time, and evolution and periods of stagnancy, but it's just been there the whole time. That's pretty amazing. Like I probably don't stop and think about that enough, and like all the things that you have to do as a small business owner that you don't even think about before you jump into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Some
remember
things that I wish that I knew.
I feel like you dove really bravely into it too. Like I obviously never go and tell any of my clients, just go quit your job. Like, but
100%.
I think you were like really ready to do that, and you dove in without, sometimes people prepare and they research, but what I remember about you is you're just like, nah, like you just came to permission granted, and you were shedding so much relationships, jobs, things that weren't good for you. And you were very brave, I think, in taking those actions.
I think I do that. I do take these like brave risks, and there's a lot of learning in the like landing of that. So I think one of the massive takeaways that I've had since is like, don't quit your job as soon as you start your business. Like having something, even if it's only 1 or 2 days a week, just to pay your bills, that would be like probably my biggest advice to anyone that wants to start a business, is like, I know that you think that you won't have enough time working on your business, and that's the truth. You never will have enough time to work on your business. But to have some like stability so that you're not relying on the business bringing in money allows so much more creativity, because you're not stressed about it having to pay the bills. And I think that I didn't do that, and I learned the hard way. So yeah, either that, or if you have like a big amount of money that you're ready to invest and keep investing in the business, because you do have to do that. Like I think I had in my mind that somehow I would just magically make money and it would pay for the business and it would pay for my life and blah, blah, blah. Not it. I went through periods of like being so incredibly poor. It was ridiculous because of that. And I was like so determined to not have another job for so long. That now is very different for me.
I so agree with you. I think there's something about, we've got this idea that, your business, to be successful, it has to be like your whole income, and you quit your job straight away. But I feel like there's a lot of like we kind of need a sense of safety or security. to be in business, and when it is our own income and we haven't been in it for a long time, it can create a lot of stress, right? But I have a feeling now. So tell us a little bit about the blend of like work and business that you do now, and how maybe it's different to before permission granted in terms of the kind of work you do and your business.
Okay, so I guess so right now my life still looks very different to, like 6 months ago. And I have a lot on my plate at the moment, and that's my biggest challenge. So I was going from like not doing that much and not having enough energy or inspiration to invest time and energy in my business. So it's been like quite dormant for a while. But at this point, my business looks like photography and videography, which has been, I'm finally getting a little bit more of a love and inspiration and creativity back around that, because I also have felt like at times when my mental health has declined, or I haven't been as good at looking after myself or all of that kind of thing, I don't have the capacity for making good work. And another thing that I've like a massive thing that I've learned throughout this process is if I'm not loving what I'm doing and I'm not interested in it, I'm going to do a crap job at it. Like I need to be engaged and love something to do a good job.
Yeah.
Which hard. It means you can't do just the mediocre stuff. Yeah. Which a lot of people can do. And I'm a little bit envious of those people, because doing that mediocre stuff might provide for them to be able to live the life that they do and do the things outside of work or whatever, but I just can't do it. I've tried so many times. Anyway, I'm getting a bit off track. So the business at the moment looks like mostly photography, and I've been leaning into like doing a lot of film work, which I love. Like I love it so much more than digital, but I think you have to have both, or at the stage of my like skill set and portfolio and that kind of thing, I do have to work with both, which is fine. I just really enjoy the film stuff more. And then at the moment I'm working 2 different jobs, both in like actually one, so I work at the South Beach sauna, so in health and wellness stuff, and at a cafe in a gym. So both of those are not like my biggest passions. They're quite like customer focused, and going back to hospitality after so long, I really never thought I would do it again, but both of them provide me this space to connect with people who are interested in health and wellness. And I'm thinking about my future, and like I'm also studying breath work at the moment, and I want to do events and connect with customers and clients and that kind of thing. And both of those allow me that access to that. And both of my bosses are just amazing as well. They're both like really inspirational people, and that's been really rare in my working career, I think, is like to be really inspired by and look up to my bosses. So they're kind of the things that I have on my plate at the moment. So study, business, and a couple of jobs.
You're definitely, I can see like that multi-passionate, like you like to do lots of different things. And so tell me, like, accepting that actually in the stage of business that you're at now, it feels better for you to have like a part-time job for that steady income. How do you think like accepting that about yourself and where you're at right now has supported you in business?
I think it allows me to do the things that I want to do. Like I can say no to the things that I don't want to do. With photography jobs, there's always going to be stuff that I'm not interested in, or like don't feel like me, or I know I'm not going to be able to produce the best results or whatever. Like I'm not really shot in studio very much. And so that probably wouldn't be my go-to, because I would feel like I couldn't necessarily deliver to the standard that I'd want to. And I think there's great merit in pushing myself to do those things if they came up, and that would have to be something that I'd sit with on each like yeah. But yeah, I think it's allowed that, and it's allowed me to think about the projects that I want to do for myself that are not necessarily paid or anything, but they're like just the creative things that I want to do, which I haven't had the room to think about or do for 2 years, you know. And I have such an interesting relationship with creativity in anyway, because I finished my degree in 2019, so doing fine art, but just was so incredibly creatively drained from that that it took a really, really long time to be able to come back to making anything at all. And I guess photography was the first step in that. And it's always been there. It's always been the thing that I like come back to and do in my own time. But even just the journey of like being able to call myself a photographer took me such a long time. I was doing it, but I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't be like, and I still struggle now.
Interesting.
But it is what it is. Yeah.
Is that like, because I was thinking, I don't know a lot about photography, but it's not like you can necessarily get a it's not like as qualification orientated kind of creativity, is it, as maybe art or something like that?
Like I definitely feel like you can go and study it, and I did some units at uni, and you can go to TAFE and all of that kind of thing. But I would say the same with like doing fine art at uni. You don't need to. If you really want to do it, you can learn everything that you want to. It just is like a place to go to have access to a bunch of resources that maybe you don't have at home, and a bunch of people that you can talk to bounce ideas off of, and people that have been in the industry.
And sometimes we create all these rules, don't we, about like, oh, well, I can call myself a photographer when, you know, one of my photos goes viral, or when I'm earning this much money. And it's so interesting to kind of unpack, well, where do those rules come from, and who gets to decide who calls someone a photographer, you know, like very interesting. I have like
imposter syndrome is so real as well.
That's what I was curious, if there's like a bit of imposter syndrome going on there as well. Because I've seen your work and it is incredible, like but I get it, like there's just something about naming ourselves as something, isn't there, that it's like the ultimate challenge. But I have a bit of a controversial question, I guess. And I interviewed someone recently who's a poet, and we were kind of talking about how she didn't study poetry, and I was saying, I wonder if that's almost a gift. Like, do you think in some ways that maybe studying art at university can be somewhat destructive for your creativity, or, you know?
That is firmly what I believe at this moment, and I hope that one day I'll get to a point where I can look back on that time just with gratitude. But I still, like, I ran into someone just coincidentally a couple of weeks ago that's doing my degree. And we had a chat, and I love having those conversations because you see a different perspective, but it also causes you to reflect. And there were definitely things that I took away. Like through that conversation, I came to remember that I loved having access to like the sculpture studio. I learned so much about like building stuff. I learned how to weld. I learned how to like do all of these things that I would have never had the opportunity to do if I hadn't done the degree. But 100%, pushing through projects that I had lost the love of them, to finish them, to get graded based on that, like really, really deeply affected me and the way that I have created since. Yeah.
Yeah, there's almost this sense, I wonder if it's not the actual process of being at uni and studying fine arts, but the process of being assessed and constantly having your work critiqued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that. And then, yeah, I think like for me, as I was talking about before, that I really need to be passionate about something to do a good job.
Yeah.
I've like had to learn over this time, as in over the last couple of years, that like, it's okay to be multifaceted. Like that was a big thing. Everyone tells you going into business that you need to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree. If you want to be an expert in your field, you need to dedicate most of your time to that one thing. If you want to bring a whole lot of different stuff, so like, you know, when I'm photographing people, I think that my ability to hold space, to ask questions, to see deeper into someone, to think about not just what it looks like through a photography lens, but maybe like what my art history has brought to that. Like all of these different things make me the photographer that I am, that's different to, you know, Johnny next door. Like, and I kind of love that about myself now, whereas I didn't before. I was battling that for such a long time. But being multifaceted, having a different day each day, like doing a bunch of different things that plays on a whole lot of different skills, isn't always a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
you know,
I want to shout that out to the people that are listening. I think it's important. Like there's no right way or one way to do business, is there?
No. And I definitely think that like in the past, throughout my business history, when I haven't had clarity on like what I wanted to do and what I wanted to provide and deliver, people can tell.
Yeah.
And I wasn't effective at communicating those things.
Yeah.
And like that, I understand that now. So that having like, because it's really funny, because only in the last like couple of months have people been like, oh, you're a photographer now. And I was like, oh, not really. Like I've been this the whole time, but maybe I just wasn't communicating that well. And now because my Instagram feed is purely photography, people are like, oh, that's what she does. Kind of thing. So there's a place for both. Like I think you still need to have clarity and focus, which I struggle with as well. But it doesn't mean that you just have to do one thing. Maybe separating them out, or even if you're using the same Instagram feed and the same business, it's just like having them clearly defined, whatever it is. But yeah, I think being multifaceted is a gift, because not everyone can do that.
Yeah. And I think you've just like so clearly articulated, it's about communication. Like actually our community are so capable of accepting the fact that we do more than one thing, as long as we communicate each thing really clearly, which that starts from within, doesn't it?
Yes.
And
100%.
I can relate, even though I'm not necessarily like a creative, but in my coaching and in my psychotherapy, I have continuously been told that I should like niche my marketing and like really target like one specific problem. But the magic of Permission Granted has always been the diversity of women, you know, like I remember you were in the first year of Permission Granted and like all the other women were mamas. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be okay for Haley. But it was actually so beautiful, the blend. And so I've always said any like business or marketing coach who said, oh, you really need to like niche down, I've just gone, I just can't, like it just doesn't feel right. I know that in some ways my business journey has maybe been made a little bit harder for that reason, but
100%, yeah.
Sometimes you've got to be true to what lights you up as well, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Because like what happens if you did do that
yeah.
and like yes, the business went off in one direction and like you were getting all the sales and blah blah blah, but you hated showing up
Yeah. Like my
because it
clients,
didn't feel like you. Yeah,
yeah, they would hate it. I've
terrible.
actually accidentally stumbled on a niche in that I've always known I'm a highly sensitive person. And then all of a sudden I just kind of started looking at things and going, oh, actually, like the majority of people that are attracted to working to me, like they really feel things quite deeply. And so like I have kind of stumbled across like that there is a common link in some of the work that I do, but it's still, I'm still not like willing to niche into like a very specific thing. And I really admire that about you with your creative pursuits. Um, so in terms of being multi-passionate, like what do you think in a nutshell is like the shadow and the light of that, like the great things about it and the not so great things about it?
I think I've also learned that I identify with a lot of the ADHD spectrum things.
Yes.
So I feel like, and learning about that stuff more, it makes so much sense
Yeah.
for me. I'm like, oh my God, okay. Um, so I think that like I think I'm just like this way inclined anyway. And yes, it is about so the light, I always dreamed of a life where each day looked different anyway. Like I've tried doing the same thing
Yeah.
every day and it wasn't me. It didn't feel like me. And I grew, and probably at different phases of my life, I didn't know. Like now I can identify that that didn't feel like me, but at that time it felt like depression or anxiety or like these other things because yeah, I just wasn't being true to who I am. But yeah, so I guess that is great that I have a different day every day. What other light? Yeah, I suppose um I guess what I said before about photography in terms of that I bring this really diverse skill set to this thing that not many other people can do.
Yeah.
Um, which I have only gained through doing a million different things and trying a million different things and learning what resounded and what came naturally and all of those things. Yeah, because I don't think that I even tried. I think it felt like I just naturally stepped into facilitator roles. Like I've always been chosen as like a leader throughout, since I was in primary school. So that obviously like resonates with people. But yeah, when I first started the business and was doing events and things and just stepping into a facilitator role, that just came so naturally to me. It was so easy. I just felt in flow in those moments.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and would have never figured that out if I hadn't tried stuff and failed at stuff and whatever.
It's like one of your
Um,
is experimentation, isn't it? Like
mm,
being able to give yourself permission to try out different things without feeling like you have to perfect it. And
mm,
I've been to one of your, I remember when you first started exploring your business and I went to like this amazing circle that you facilitated and it was just so good. And it just felt like, yeah, you had been doing that work for years.
that's
Yeah.
so interesting. I've thought about that event
Yeah.
so many times, and I honestly think it was probably one of the best things that I've ever run, even though it was my first and I was like completely thrown off and had no expectation and like no idea what I was doing,
Yeah.
but it just worked so well.
Yeah.
Um, there's definitely a lot of dark stuff to being multifaceted. I think the focus and attention, I want to do everything all of the time. And
Yeah.
this has been something that's like very much present in my life at the moment is I'm trying to do so many different things and be good at so many different things and improve at so many different things. that I kind of am getting nowhere. So having to just take a step back and like pick a few things that I really want to focus on. And I find that so hard. Like it's so unnatural to me.
Yeah. Get that.
So yeah, maybe having some guidance with that. Like I just came from my therapy session. She's like, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is what you need to do to have help with that.
Love it.
Yeah. So I guess it's just finding some support systems and that kind of thing to try and help make that process easier. Yeah, I'm quite prone to distraction, and I'm like such an ideas person as well. And so I'll just have a million ideas of all these cool things that I want to do, and they could all have validity.
Yes.
But if I just like put all of them in play like a tiny bit, again, they go nowhere. It's like maybe, I haven't worked it out yet. I think I need a better system of maybe recording those things and the things that stick and stay for a while and that I come back to, or you know, are in the back of my mind for months or even years. I think they're the things that I should focus on. And I think that's the case. That's what happened with breathwork was I did my first breathwork journey probably similar time to when I started Permission Granted. It was like a few weeks after that relationship ended. And it's now like it's, you know, 2.5 years later that I'm known for a long time that this is something that I wanted to do, but because it persisted, I finally actioned it, and I'm doing that. So maybe that's a good way to think about it, is just have a system to record all of these things that come into my mind and come into my body, and like downloads and all of the things. And then what stays there and what keeps coming back.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love listening to your process of like, it's almost like you're coaching yourself and talking yourself through what works for you. And I know like whenever I launch something, my brain tends to come up with like 100 other ideas whilst I'm trying to be in like that launch mode, which requires like real focus. And so something I've learned to do is like record my ideas in a notebook and then like, come back to it later when I finish the thing that I need to focus on, because for me it was a bit of self-sabotage. It was like, oh, you know, I'm a little bit nervous about this. I don't know if I want to keep going, so I'm going to come up with like 20 other ideas. But your ideas sound like they're just constant, like you have a mind that's so creative, you just always have ideas, whereas I really only get ideas a lot when I'm in launch mode. It's so funny.
That's so interesting.
I
wonder what it is about that launching process that like facilitates your like imagination expanding.
I don't know. I think at the beginning it was a little bit of avoidance. Like my coach kind of picked on it, because I'd be like, okay, I really want to launch Permission Granted, but like I'm a week into it and it's feeling hard and I'm thinking about like 10 other things. But then, so it was probably more when I was, you know, first learning how to do that. So I don't think it happens as much, but yeah, I definitely don't have creative ideas like coming to me all like every day like you do. So I just love how different our brains are, how different everyone.
I think it's like I can facilitate when those times happen as well, and they it definitely goes up and down. But I think I'm maybe coming into a more openly creative time of my life, which I haven't been. Like I've been very much in like survival mode for a while, and just purposely practicing creative things. Like I bought myself a new watercolor set of like beautiful handmade watercolors to try and inspire me to create things with that. And it's just like little things, and it's being more conscious and bringing more of those times into my life. And then maybe that gets the creativity ticking again.
I love that. And something that comes up in Permission Granted every year is like this idea I feel like we have so many rules, especially as women, that like we have to spend all of our time making money and being productive. And I love this concept of like being permission to be creative just for the sake of creativity, like just for the joy and pleasure of it, rather than it always having to be tied to, you know, getting a book published or selling your art or making money. I'm really curious, like if you have any advice for any of our listeners around, you know, how to give yourself that permission to just be creative without there being an outcome tied to it.
I think this is something that I really struggle with, and like still I'm probably getting a little bit better at it now.
Yeah.
But I have been there, like when, especially when you're struggling financially and you're like, what can I do that
Yeah.
can make me some money? Or like, what creativity can I turn, like, what can I sell? Blah, blah, blah. And there's still challenges that come up with that, with this. But it would be book yourself into a session, like whatever you're slightly curious about or interested in, go and do a class, like even if it's just a casual class, because it's time, it's like designated time for that creativity. You're around other people.
Yeah.
Like for me, entering into those spaces, I feel so much pressure to be good because I've studied art.
Yeah.
And that becomes my barrier. But you know, like a life drawing class or pottery or whatever, and if you just even like bring a friend or a partner, so you kind of have to be, yeah, all going by yourself is scary as well, but like even more amazing because you're going to meet other people and you're probably going to talk to them there and never talk to them again, or you might meet someone amazing, you never know. But I think it's much harder to do it on your own when you're at home and not go into your mind about it, I suppose. Because I'm always like, yeah, what do I have to, or what, I don't know. I think I've played a little bit more maybe outside. Like if I go and just take my watercolors and a thing like brushes and paper down to the beach and just give myself half an hour of that instead of, like, it's probably avoidance of writing in my journal, like whatever. But just moments like that, little snippets of things where you don't have to paint anything realistic, just paint whatever comes into your mind, or do paint something realistic if that gives you inspiration to start with. But yeah, definitely doing it around other people. A bunch of girlfriends, just hold a wine night at your house and get everyone to bring something creative, like a little craft thing, or there's plenty of like these kinds of places around, but I'd say that that's a good starting point.
I love like this conversation because I feel like you're being really honest. Like you're saying, like, I have these tools and these ways around this, but I still also struggle with it as a creative. And I feel like my audience, like not all of them are necessarily going to be like qualified artists or creatives, but they have this yearning to create or just do something for the joy of it. So I think it's like a very permission giving, you know, conversation to hear that even a creative, you know, even a like qualified
100%.
trouble
Yeah,
with.
we put so much pressure.
Yeah.
And like I think even like another step below that, if you find painting or watercolor or drawing intimidating, even still, do collage. That's
Yes.
always like messy as but
Yeah.
fun. Just get a bunch of magazines from an op shop, get a bunch of people over, just cut out like colors that you like, or you know, making a vision board is always really fun, or yeah, like making a poem but having to cut out all the letters. Just do stuff that we did as kids. Play a little bit more.
And I know,
Yeah, or clay. I love clay, like because it's so visceral and you have to get your hands in it. Yeah.
And I know like dance is not necessarily art, but or painting, but for me, it comes back to like when I started my dance journey a couple of years ago. Like I'm not someone who's like naturally good at dance, but I really enjoy it. And it's like, when did this thing happen to us that makes us feel like we can only do something if we're really good at it, or if the finished product is really polished? Like, can't we just go and paint just for the sake of it and feel like the joy of it? Like, or yeah, same with dance. And I think that's another way to reframe it, isn't it? Like, you know, that it doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be sellable.
I think we all battle with that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
I hugely like stop myself from doing things from this fear of looking stupid, like I don't know what I'm doing all the time.
Yeah.
My life is like riddled with those things. But yeah, I didn't even think about dance, but like such a good example. And it's scary sometimes it's scary going to classes. Like I know you've been so committed to going to TDC.
Not lately. Not since I had a second baby. I've been slack.
Yeah.
But it's on
But
my
yeah, I struggled with that too.
Yeah.
And like it was a lot of pressure in that I wanted to be really good and I wasn't as good as the other people in the class. And there was like, I was having anxiety attacks before going into every class. And so I just like stopped. But there are spaces that you can do it more casually. And,
Yes.
you know, like we kind of think of things like ecstatic dance as being like really hippie and that kind of thing. It's amazing. It's like the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Because there's no judgment and you move your body how it wants to move, which can feel really unnatural to begin with, especially if we have like a trained dancer background or whatever, and you're used to being given certain steps and blah, blah, blah. So it's a challenge. But you can also stand on the sidelines and just watch other people and get inspiration from that. And there's no judgment about that either.
Yeah.
Whereas like, yeah, and there's like no lights, no lycra and all of those kinds of places that allow you to just get a bit more in your body and expressing.
Yeah.
Which is really important.
Yes, I love that. I feel like maybe we should I might put a few links to those classes for anyone in Perth who's listening. But I'm sure they're around the whole world, you know, these opportunities to dance without any lights on and to dance without any worries or, you know, needing to get it perfect or just right. Yeah.
I think expression is like what makes us human, right?
Yeah.
Like that's our gift. Like other animals, I guess, can sing or like whatever, but expressing in whatever way feels naturally to you, singing in the shower or dancing at no lights, no lights, no lycra, or doing an amazing painting. Like there are all ways of expression that are so deeply ingrained in us as humans.
Yeah. Even like at the end of Permission Granted 2 years ago, maybe the one after you, I think. I'm trying to, it's all like blurred into one beautiful experience for me. But I remember there was like, we finished off with like pleasure as a month. And there were so many women just doing like mindful coloring in, or like someone did like paint by numbers, like, you know, like it can just be like a creative release as well, can't it? It doesn't have to be this, you know, really technical experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So if people want to kind of follow along on your journey and find out more about your work, like where do you most hang out?
I'm not very good at doing that. And I should be better. Probably Instagram is like Haley Miranda, and I am gonna make another one for breath work when that becomes a thing, if you're interested in learning more about breath and that kind of thing. www.haleymiranda.com is my website. Currently trying to upload some more stuff and do some changes on there so things are a bit more clear and it's easier to work with me and know how to do that. But yeah, they're probably the main places, I suppose.
Yeah.
For where I'm at currently. Yeah.
We'll drop all those links in the notes as well. But thank you so much for just sharing so like beautifully and authentically. Like really, really appreciate you.
Thank you, Sam. It's always a pleasure.